In this video, I want to cover with you what to do if your child is depressed. It's a tender subject here, okay? And the first thing, there'll be three things that we cover. The first thing that I want to cover with you is that you should get them assessed by a professional. You should have them see a psychologist, a psychiatrist, or a licensed psychotherapist and have them give you their assessment as to if they're depressed, their level of depression, and what to do. They can guide you with that. What I'm going to share with you are some principles on what to do with your kids if you're seeing that they're depressed or have depressive symptoms. If you want to know what those depressive symptoms are, do a quick Google search, but you'll get the idea. They're down, they're not doing the things they should be doing, they're sad when they shouldn't be sad. A little bit of sadness is fine, it's good even in a way. But being low for long periods of time, not getting engaged in activities, staying in the house too much, sleeping too little or too much, all of those, and especially if they have a clinically significant or a significant impact on their life, then your child might be depressed. But here's what you can do, okay? Let's get right into this. Number one, you can use your structure to create an environment where depression can't exist. Here's what I mean by this, and this is just structural. We'll get into a few more pieces later. Your power, one of your powers as a parent, is to create influence. Emotional influence. Another way that you can express influence is through the structure and the boundaries that you create in the household, right? You can use this to your advantage. You're probably doing some of this already, but here are some other ways that you can do it. Make sure, here's your intent. Let me back up. Your intent is to create an emotional environment and a physical environment where it's difficult for depression to grow. So, for example, I have a little greenhouse in my garage. If I didn't want something to grow in there, I would create a certain physical environment that would make it very difficult to grow, right? In that example, I'd keep it cold or super hot and I wouldn't water them. You get the idea. You want to do the same thing because depression is a commodity. It's an energy, right? And if you make an environment where it's difficult to exist, it'll be difficult to exist. Right? And I know that there are more far-reaching genetic influences that kind of create depression inside of people, but I can tell you whenever I've worked, and I've been working with people for 23 years, 70,000 hours with young people and families, and I can tell you that when people have created a robust environment for depression not to thrive, then they've followed that, 80% of the time, they weren't depressed. And maybe they took some medication, maybe they changed their life in drastic ways. But you can conquer, you can dissolve depression from inside of you using these kinds of tools and other things too. But this is some basic pillars, right? So meaning, as a parent, you create a structure where they're eating well. Now, you maybe can't control everything that they eat because maybe they're at school or they have some liberties to pick up junk food or whatever. But in your home, you're providing balanced meals. You're providing fruits and vegetables. Okay, they don't eat them? Well, that's all you got, right? And you offer them the options of what to eat are healthy, nutritious foods, organic meats, farm-raised meats that are healthy, that have vitality to them, fruits and vegetables. Maybe they're home cooked, maybe they're not, fine, but you're putting energy into creating the opportunity for what they put into their body to not have them feel depressed. Sometimes when I'm talking with families and kids, and I'll ask them that question, like, what are they eating? And they're like, tons of junk food. I don't know what to do. And I'm like, well, there's one reason why they feel like, terrible, is that they're just eating really poorly. And I mean, if I ate like they ate, I'd feel pretty depressed or sad, at least, let's say, low energy. And if I kept doing that day after day, I'd feel terrible. And I'm a healthy person. I don't have depression. Do I feel sad sometimes? Yes. But if I wanted to create an environment, and if I lived in an environment where most people felt depressed, I would probably feel depressed over time, right? Okay, so the first one within structure is eating. What are they eating in nutrition? Secondly, sleeping. You're creating a structure in their life that encourages, that inspires them to sleep at appropriate amounts. If they're oversleeping, you are in there waking them up at 9 a.m. on the weekends. Maybe that's a little intense. Maybe 10, 11 a.m. on the weekends, right? When school days, you're giving them enough, you're going in there, you're waking them up if they're not getting up. Fine. And then you're doing everything you can to inspire them to go to bed early. Okay, they're tired all day? Great. Have that happen for a couple days. They'll be tired and want to go to bed at 10 or 11 p.m. on a weeknight, right? So create some structure. You're going to have to use a little bit of power here to create the kind of structure that encourages them to live in a healthy way. Exercise. I just was talking with a family the other day, and they said to their child, you've got to do a sport. And they're like, I don't like any of the sports. Okay, fine. And I kind of intervened. I was like, here's the intent. Your parents need you to do some kind of physical, scheduled, rigorous exercise 5 days a week. However that gets done is up to you. You want to go to the gym? Great. You want to take up a yoga practice? It's not likely, but go for it. Find something. It's got to meet those criteria, and we need to know in 2 days, right? So we empowered them to come up with the ideas that met the intent that the parents had, which I was in full support of. Yeah. That's the third piece, exercise. So eat, sleep, exercise. Just some basics here. School or work, whatever it is, the thing that they're doing, they need to do it. They've got to go. We'll talk about in another video what to do if they're not doing any of these things and what kind of power and leverage that you have. But for now, get them to school, get them out of the house, get them to work, whatever it is. Get them into that thing that has them out of the house from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.-ish for like those 8 to 9 hours a day. I was working with a young adult who was feeling really depressed, and we went over all these things, and I was like, just get out of the house from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Do not let yourself go back into your house, and absolutely not your bed. Get out into the world. Look for jobs. Go to a coffee house. Go see people. Go try things. It's difficult for depression to survive in an environment like that, where it's constantly changing. Depression wants you just to go back into bed and sleep all day and watch, Netflix and binge Grey's Anatomy or whatever it is, right? So we want to not allow that, okay? Socially, so eat, sleep, exercise, school or work, socially. Get them out of the house, connecting with people in real life. I know it's common, and it's actually great in a way for young people to have connections online. I think that's awesome in some ways, but they need to have it in person too. So create a structure, even an expectation that they're out with people somehow. There's a lot of creativity and bandwidth and around how you can create that for them, that structure, but you can, and push them to. It's important. And so we got eat, sleep, exercise, school work, social engagements, and the last one, help. Make them get help. Get them to a therapist who specializes with teenagers. Don't bring them to an adult psychiatrist. They're going to suck at it. I've talked to enough kids and enough adult psychiatrists, for example, or adult psychologists or adult psychotherapists who are great with adults, and they suck at working with kids. They don't know how to relate. They don't know sarcasm. They don't know how to joke around. They don't know how to keep it light. They don't know how to talk about other things for 30 minutes of the session, which is actually critically important to working with young people. You just talk about stuff in their life because you're learning so much about them, even though it's not therapy per se, which it actually is, because you're learning as a therapist, you're learning about them. You're learning about how they see their world, how they interact with their world, what they think about things. You want to know about their life and what their opinions are. So make sure you find help from someone who's skilled and has lots of experience working with young people, okay? So and make them do that. It's a requirement once or twice a week, right? They may think it sucks or it's boring. Give it some time. And especially finding the people who work with young people. Maybe they'll go outside and go to a climbing gym for a session or something like that. There are those creative people almost everywhere in the world that I've been or heard about. So those are the 6 things that you can do: eat, sleep, exercise, school, work, social engagements, and getting some professional help in your structure. Okay, we've talked about structure. Let's go to relationship. The second aspect of their life that you have influence over, that you have a dominion with, that you can create something to navigate their depression. First thing within your relationship with them, and that's what I mean by relationship, is stay connected with them as much as possible. The depression has us isolate from people in the world. I should have said this in the beginning, but I suffered from depression when I was a young person. From about the age of, I was a sophomore in high school until I moved to Oregon and I was 21. So about 6 years. I had significant bouts of depression where I didn't want to do anything. Thankfully, I made it to school most days, but I hated who I was. I had depression and anxiety. If I would have gone to a therapist, they would have diagnosed me with both. So I'm speaking from some degree of experience. I'm not your kid. It was the 90s, and back then it was a different era. But I know it for myself, and that helps me understand what other people might go through for themselves. It's not the same, but I have my own experience with it. So all this to say, as a parent, stay as connected as you can with them. They may not want to Okay, fine. Accept that in a way. Fine, daughter. I know you don't want to stay connected with me, and we're going to dinner tonight. If you want to sit there silently, it's fine with me. But I'm going to be there with you, and we're going to keep doing this shit. And excuse me. We're going to keep doing this stuff until you feel better, because that's how I'm committed and how much I love you, right? Okay, so stay connected as much as you can, and with your structure, create opportunities to be connected and do what they want to do. And maybe you'll say to me they don't want to do anything. Then figure out what video game they're playing and try to play it and be terrible at it, right? What else? They like to go to the mall with their friends. Okay, you're not going to do that. But maybe take them shopping. It's okay. A little consumer therapy never hurt anybody. If you didn't do it like an addiction every day of your life or every weekend and you only relied upon that to have connection with them, that wouldn't be good. But be flexible, be creative, meet on their terms, and find a way to connect with them. And try not to beat down the front door of how are you feeling all the time, right? Try the side door of want to go shopping, want to go to ice cream, want to go to P.F. Chang's, whatever it is. Take them out to eat and ask them about stuff in their life. Don't ask them about them right away, because they probably feeling pressure from everybody about how they feel. Ask them about other stuff in their life, their relationships, their friends, their classes. And you might tell me they don't have opinions about anything. They don't share with me anything. Fine. Let it be. Don't create a pressure for them to have to share, but keep the expectation there. Meaning that you go out to dinner, they don't say anything. Fine. It's kind of unpleasant for you. Fine. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. I've never met a young person who, when their parents chilled out, became more patient and allowed them to open up when they were ready to open up, and at the same time didn't give up and created opportunities for them to connect, didn't open up. All right, so that was a strange sentence. Let me say it a little more simply. Kids will open up if you, A, accept how they are in the moment, meaning you don't want to change them. 2, you give them opportunities to hang out with you and spend time with you. You create those opportunities, not that you give them. You create the opportunities that are mandatory to spend time with you. And within those opportunities, you accept them for how they are. And 3, you don't give up. And you love them and you continue caring for them and you don't take it personally. That's another part of not giving up, is you don't take it personally, right? I've never met a young person who didn't open up given those 3 criteria. So try those, right? I like to call it bend, don't break parenting, right? Bend on some rules, let them have a mental health day once a month. If they're really struggling, maybe a little bit more. I worked with some parents a while back, and he was like, hey, we're going rafting today. We're calling in sick. Took his kid, went whitewater rafting. This was when I was living in Colorado. Beautiful parenting strategy. Called in sick for his kid and took him rafting for the day. It's awesome. Call in sick for your kid and take them on a wonderful day. Even if they hate it, even if they don't feel like they love it, 2 things are going to happen. 1, they're going to be like, wow, my parent is cool that they do that and they care about me. And 2, that kind of sucked, but it could have been a lot worse. I could have been in school, right? I mean, just for those 2 things, you get some kind of social capital in your bank as a parent. You're kind of cool. They start to want to open up, give a little bit to you. You're sacrificing a day of work for yourself. Maybe it's not a sacrifice for you, but money-wise, it might be. Using PTO or a sick day. I mean, be creative, right? And don't give up. Keep extending yourself. I remember one parent stayed up really late setting up a project for their kid. The kid had just kind of given up, and the parent just did it the last 10% or 20%, which a lot of therapists and people in this day and age and parents would make the parent wrong for doing that and saving them. Doing that every once in a while is not a bad thing, especially if your kid's struggling and they're going to get another F. Do a little bit. What's the difference? Look at the cost-benefit analysis of it, of a decision like that. Use your own common sense. Don't listen to us people, us therapists, too much, okay? You have some great common sense and you know your kid better than anybody else, even though we might have some good ideas for you, okay? All right. So the first step was structure. Eat, sleep, exercise, school, work, social engagements, and help. Second, relationship. Bend, don't break. Stay connected as much as possible. The third thing you can do if your child's depressed is focus on you. I put a lot of content out about how you can focus on you and how important that is. Don't make yourself an emotional burden to a teenager or a young person who's already depressed. Don't give them a reason and give their narrative a reason to say, God, not only am I depressed, I'm making everyone else depressed in my life. What a POS I am. Piece of poop I am, right? So do your own personal work. Look at what it's bringing up for you. It's not that you're going to be joyful and happy and amazing if your child's depressed. I don't know if that's possible. It's probably possible, but it's very challenging. I wouldn't expect anyone to be able to do it. But can you achieve a sense of peace? Yes. Can you move in that direction? Possibly. At least work towards that? Absolutely. Start to strengthen your own self-care regimen when your child is depressed. Now, of course, you'll be tempted to prioritize them and their well-being, but gosh, don't sacrifice your own well-being too much for their own. Really important to focus on yourself and to be, I was going to say it's selfish. It's not selfish. It's to be connected to yourself and to care for yourself. You don't want to become a burden. For most people, young people who have been depressed, they have told me in confidence, not only am I depressed, but everyone else hates me because I'm making everyone else depressed. Ooh, it's a brutal narrative, right? And it's kind of true in a lot of cases. So strengthen the family. Do what you can to empower other people to strengthen their own self-care regimen, the siblings. It's not about kind of isolating them from it or diluting them. And it's not the everything's fine, Barbie mentality. Everything's great. That's not true. Things are not great. Your sister is really struggling. Your brother is really suffering right now. He's really depressed. I know. Is everything going to be okay? Yes, everything's going to be okay. I don't know how we're going to get through this, but we are. Somehow we're going to get through this together as a family. Powerful narrative to infuse into your family, right? And then inside of that, you care for yourself, right? All right, so let's summarize. The things you can do when your child's depressed. First, get help. Number one, I could not say that strongly enough. If their safety, you want to get their safety assessed. Are they suicidal? Are they at risk of hurting themselves or someone else? Get help, professional help from someone else outside of your family. Within that assessment, you can work on your structure, the relationship, and focus on you. I'm with you in this, okay? All the best.